The New Mexico Funders Collaborative is a group of 17 private foundations that have given a focus to New Mexico, either all or in part. And this type of arrangement speaks to the heart of what makes a good candidate for the Grantmaker of the Year award. Hello, I'm Jeff Lemon, the Grant Professional Association's Award Committee Chair. And joining me today is Thornburg Foundation Communications Manager Russell Hawkins and Thornburg Foundation President Allan Oliver. Good day to you.
Good day. Thanks for having us.
Good to talk with you. Give us a quick overview of kind of what this collective is all about. Why was it formed? What it set out to do, and what it has accomplished? I know it's a lot of questions there, but if you could just share a little bit of background about this whole thing.
Well, sure. It started a couple of years ago. I want to say almost 3 years ago now. And it was, as you mentioned, bringing together about 17 different funders. All of us are place-based funders, so we focus in on New Mexico. And at the time, what we're looking at is, so there was the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, there was Inflation Reduction Act law, and they were providing these big opportunities for leveraging dollars into the state around things that aligned with our interests. And so we did that initially as first with a subgroup of us as a small pilot, and that was done as, let's see, I think we put out around 23 different grants. There was a subgroup of 3 different foundations that did it, and we leveraged out, those 3 different grants. There's 23 grants, it was around 300,000, and it leveraged out, if I'm remembering this right, around $23 million for that initial pilot. And then that, based on that pilot, very quickly became very interesting to a lot of other foundations. We expanded it out. It's now that larger group of funders. And what we've been doing for the last year or so, 2 different things. One is with my hat on the Thornburg Foundation side. That was a proof of concept that we took to our board, and the board said, oh, well, we should be doing that type of work ourselves, aligned with our own initiatives. And so we created the Pursuing Federal Funds project, which is a project for the foundation, and that's putting $1 million a year into trying to leverage out federal dollars. And then we still stay with the larger group of the accessing public funds, and we were able to pool some additional funding. They've just done a grant. It's literally in process. One of our team members is working on it right now, and that's to put funding towards intermediaries. And in particular, we're looking at a statewide intermediary that's going to be helping build capacity within nonprofits in New Mexico, help them be prepared for, the ground is shifting around federal grants. And so can we aim them more towards philanthropy? Can we aim them more towards state funding? And can we help them defend any existing grants that they have at the federal level? And so that's, it's exciting because grantees and others are always kind of saying to foundations, hey, you guys need to kind of get more aligned in your work, and you need to get more aligned in like your efforts. And it's and also aligned in terms of supporting capacity building, which we all recognize as a challenge for nonprofits. And this has been it's been a good vehicle for doing that.
And what's been fascinating, at least early on, is I believe you had some sort of study that looked at the state and how much federal funding was coming your way and how it didn't really stack up against other states. And one of the things you found was fascinating was a lot of people were kind of backing away from that idea because of the match dollars that were required.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, the Grant Plant is a for-profit entity that I know is part of GPA. And they did an excellent study for us that looked at, essentially what the bluntly put kind of money that was left on the table that like New Mexico organizations should be getting. And so it was a really kind of helpful kind of kick in the pants for us to kind of urge foundations to be, sometimes that matching fund, sometimes just straight up funding the grant writing. That was another element, and also being there was a lot of elements. It was a very technical report, but it included things like hey, think about the administrative costs and making sure that those are kind of built in either from the foundation side, or that we're advocating that, supporting the advocacy for the feds to be providing that administrative piece as well. So yeah, and they did fantastic work in that in developing that research that really kind of continues to drive our thinking.
And along that line, you know, what are some of the more recent innovative, creative, and game-changing ways your grant making is impacting the grant sector these days?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think I would be ignoring the elephant in the room if I didn't mention the fact that federal grants have changed really dramatically with the new administration. And so I think we, by already having the muscle of foundations working together and having that kind of already that ongoing conversation with nonprofits, we're in the process of pivoting. And the first thing we did is lean into the grant plant and ask them to do kind of an assessment of like, what are they seeing from kind of the top down in terms of cuts and changes and within the federal government. We combined that with and Russell was really key part of this, but did a survey out to our grantees looking at what are they facing in terms of federal cuts and federal changes. Are they able to reach their officer in the federal agency? Are they experiencing cuts or holds on their own grants? And so with that, we've actually put together with Grant Plant's assistance, a really good research project that we're bringing back to our statewide funders and saying, with recommendations of like, here's what's next, here's the things that we ought to be looking at. There's good, hard, solid asks to the foundation world of, can we be more flexible in terms of moving from project grants to operating grants? Can we be more flexible, more broadly in our initiatives? And obviously there's an ask for us to increase our budgets, and these are the things that we're discussing with our boards. And then we're thinking very hard about how do we partner with state government, because I think the Candid had some statistic that if we were to increase our giving by 282%, that at that level we might match to what the federal government does, and that would quickly put most of philanthropy out of business. But could we partner with state government who also has sees the clear needs that are out there as well? For sure. And that's what we're looking to do, and that was some of the advice that came back to us. So I think there's definitely some innovations in there, and that came out of that cooperation.
So what did receiving the Grantmaker of the Year award mean to your collaborative, to your different foundations that are involved?
I think it meant a whole lot. I think just simply the grant writing professionals group, how to describe this, it's it's fantastic to get really positive feedback from folks who are kind of most closely focused to what philanthropy is doing and what state government and federal dollar, most closest to the work, if you will, and that they would kind of recognize our work we were grateful for. I think that certainly was a really strong edification with our board of directors. For us as our foundation, I think it was something that made the project more interesting to fellow funders, because it was say an acknowledgement from the field that this is working. And so it's meaningful when your colleagues who are kind of sitting in different seats kind of recognize your work. Super meaningful.
So would you encourage others to nominate a grant maker who is doing these sorts of things? And if so, why?
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just for one, kind of the process of getting it down on a paper of like, here's all the things you're doing, is super helpful. I think that I have to say that conference was a heck of a lot of fun. You guys are, that is a very, very fun crew. And so I know Lo Marceline from Ancorum and I we were delighted to be able to go and receive the award. And that was, it was a really fun time. And I think just yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's a really good, strong feedback loop for philanthropy, where it's, you know, we need to continuously know more and more from the field of like what is seen and perceived as innovative, because it's like we're just like we're on a different side of the aisle, if you will, but we want to get better, and we always want to improve our work. And that feedback loop of recognizing of like, here's what's working for the sector, that this award provides. It's a really unique award in that regard. It's helpful. It helps us improve and helps us know what's perceived as innovative.
And what has been fascinating to me, just reading through your application originally and all, was beyond funding. Speaking of conferences, that you hosted your own for the state Groundworks annual conference. Maybe speak a little bit about some of the support initiatives that you have going that are not just funds but other things.
Yeah, so we're part of we're a member. Groundworks New Mexico is it's like both our state association of grant makers, and it's also state association for nonprofits. It's kind of it's been combined. And so it was, the research reports that the grant plant put forward, based that we helped commission, we presented at the Groundworks conference. I think they were interestingly, we paired that with there was that presentation, and then at the same panel, Congresswoman Stansbury, for Congressional District 1 for New Mexico, also presented and said, essentially, these are the ideas we need for us to be queued up and set up as a state to be garnering and keeping these federal dollars. And so it was this great kind of reinforcement between, both the nonprofit sector and the governmental sector. And so we've been delighted to be able to take and present these results. Just this last week, we presented the results of this kind of second round of research that the grant plant did with us, and the survey results for what are the needs that nonprofits are feeling or needs that they're having right now, and presented it to the Groundworks conference. And I got a lot of feedback from different nonprofits there saying, you know what, this type of feedback loop is what, they were delighted to see philanthropy kind of proactively going and asking for this information and asking for this feedback. And so I think this is, we've been on this path, and, think that this is a path we're going to continue to be on, because it's kind of positively mutually reinforcing.
So Russell, what's your impression of how all of this has gone? You've probably seen it from the early days through to today. What's it like to be working, with this type of group and really making some major accomplishments in the state?
Yeah, I'm a little new here, but I will say that, like, being part of Thornburg Foundation, you really see people thinking very creatively, collaboratively about the philanthropic sector across the state. A lot of different organizations sharing information, collaborating. Our founder, extremely generous, extremely connected to New Mexico, that has a lot of special interest in, New Mexico has some certain challenges, climate, a need for state dollars. And so it's a very interesting place to be a part of. And, for instance, this award was given for the first time, as I believe it, to a group of funders who created the New Mexico Funders Group. So, that's just an example of how we share information, we get together to accomplish some tough problems.
Very good.
look at.
Well, our viewers today may not have a group of funders in mind to nominate for the Grantmaker of the Year award. Perhaps you know of a funder that also exemplifies the innovative, creative, and game-changing work that the award is designed to highlight. So please navigate to the nomination link on the GPA website and nominate them today. A nomination form is designed to keep things brief and should not take an exorbitant amount of time to complete. So please nominate a deserving candidate today. And special thanks to Thornburg Foundation Communications Manager Russell Hawkins, Thornburg Foundation President Allan Oliver, for joining us today. Thank you all very much. I'm Jeff.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Jeff.